Good evening and welcome to our forum for the Liberty School Board. This forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters, Kansas City, Clay, Platte, and Jackson counties. I am Anitra Steele and I am a member of this league and lead the forum's admin team. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. We neither support nor oppose candidates or parties. Our mission is to empower voters and to defend our democracy. We envision a democracy where every citizen has the knowledge, the right, the desire, and the confidence to participate. Our membership is open to everyone. I'd like you to know the other league members volunteering with me. Tommy Sexton is our moderator. Cheryl Barnes is our timekeeper, and our Zoom is monitored by Dave Montjoy. The public has sent in the questions to the league's website from which you will be asked. I'm now going to introduce you to Tommy Sexton.
Good evening. Your vote matters. Tonight, we will learn about candidates for the Liberty School Board on your April 4th ballot. The Board of Education is a volunteer representative body elected by the registered voters of the local public school district. The board governs the school district and provides leadership and advocacy for public education. School boards make decisions in the best interest of the entire district. They serve a 3-year term. Voters have submitted questions for candidates via our website, and you can do it during this at LWVKC.org. Forums last approximately 90 minutes, and I'll ask each candidate the same questions selected from those submitted. The order of the candidate responses will be determined by random rotation. Each candidate will be given 90 seconds to respond to each question and 2 minutes for a closing statement. We invited all of the candidates for this office, and we welcome 6 in tonight's forum: Jenn Bauer, Angie Reed, AJ Byrd, Brian Ahart, Amanda Beers, and Kira Montuori. The forum will be recorded and available on the league's website. Again, that is LWVKC.org. Candidates, please answer the question asked and stick to the topic. There'll be no rebuttals, but you may go back to an issue during your 2-minute closing remarks. Let us begin. The timer for the 2-minute closing remarks will come at 7:45. First question goes to Jenn Bauer. Please explain why you decided to run for the Liberty School Board and what qualifications or experiences you have that lend itself to this job.
Is the timer going? Okay, I'm Jenn Bauer, and I decided to run for school board for a couple of different reasons. First, I have 2 students, a senior and a freshman, who've gone through all their education through Liberty Public Schools. My daughter started kindergarten in 2010 and is getting ready to graduate. I've spent a lot of time in the schools as a volunteer, as a PTA officer for 6 years. 4 of those I was PTA president at the middle school. I became a substitute teacher during COVID so that I could help out with the vacancies in the buildings. I had cohorts here at school, at my house, trying to maintain some semblance of school during the closures. My eyes have been really open to some very positive things with the district, but there's also some things that I hear when I'm in the buildings from the teachers. Some things I see in the difference between where my senior is and where the freshman class is pretty significant difference. And I knew there were going to be some openings for school board this round, so I decided to throw in my hat and continue giving to LPS like I always have in a volunteer capacity. So I don't really have a super strong agenda. I just feel like that's my service to LPS has been 10 years, and I just want to continue doing that for the next 3.
Thank you very much. Angie Reed. Will you explain why you're running and what qualifications, experiences lend itself to the job?
Good evening. I'm Angie Reed. I am currently on the school board. I am a retired teacher. And when I retired from teaching I spent my last 6 years of a 28-year career in Liberty Public Schools, I decided that I needed to run for the Board of Education to serve as a teacher advocate and a voice of things that are important to teachers, as well as what's important to students. I had both of my daughters graduated from Liberty Public Schools and had an excellent education. And I understand how important it is for our students to have that first-rate education. And so I enjoy the volunteering. I enjoy the work that we've done. I feel like we've made a lot of strides in the right direction to help our students be successful. And I want to continue to do that work and at the same time, do what's best for our students and our staff. That is the thing that is the most important, is learning how to work with a group of 7 individuals to come to an agreement on issues that are important to our staff, our students, and our community, most importantly. So thank you.
Thank you. AJ Byrd.
Yes. The question was, why
Yeah.
am I running for school board and what are my qualifications?
It is.
I'm running for Liberty School Board because I have been invested in this community the majority of my life. I've lived here nearly 70 some years. I'm a student that also attended Liberty School, as well as 3 or 4 generations followed me, and still have a great grandson in the school system. So I'm invested. And I've seen us as a district, as a board, dealing with some very precarious situations during this COVID epidemic. And our board has become solidified in terms of how to address crisis. And I think we are well-grounded and truly know how to look at situations and follow through in terms of delivering what needs to be done. Qualification-wise, I have a master's degree in public administration, a social works degree. I've worked in public service the majority of my life. I've even taught school in Kenya, Africa, and did some substituting in the Liberty school system. I have been involved in the community in terms of, I've been on various school-related boards, one of them the school naming committee, the superintendent's hiring committee. I've been on the Franklin School Retention Committee, served as a PTA member at Franklin School in 1985 through 1986. I feel I'm well-rounded and bring some particular unique skills to this circumstance, and believe that we still have work to finish here in the school district.
Thank you. Kira Montuori.
Hi, I'm Kira Montuori. I have 4 kids in the district, ranging from elementary to high school. I really have no agenda other than kids. They have been my professional North Star as well. And so I bring 16 years of leadership experience in the nonprofit sector. I am very familiar with managing boards, but also serving on boards as well. I have experience with creating and executing budgets. I have been involved in program development and evaluation, strategic planning, human resources. I'm also a big fan of teachers. I think that they have been under a lot of public scrutiny lately, and I feel like I'm a good advocate for teachers as far as listening and trying to come up with solutions and ways to help them stay committed to our kids. And that's it.
Thank you very much. Brian Ahart.
Hi, my name is Brian Ahart. And the reason I'm running for school board is public education really is the center of the community. And so it's important that we really strive to improve and continue the success that's already been built on in the Liberty community. I see the dedication that the teachers put forth every day. I'm married to one. My wife, Amy, teaches at Liberty High School and spends countless hours out of her own time working to grade papers and spend time communicating with her students. So I understand that just because teachers are in the building only for a short period of time, their day doesn't really end until late in the evening. And so I think it's important that we bring back that mutual respect between our patrons and the district administration. I really feel like that's deteriorated over the last few years, and something we need to focus on as a community to really provide that positive input and voice back into the community. I have no other agenda other than just being an objective and a positive voice for the community. Students are obviously first, and that's really the most important thing. I think the experience that I bring, I've got 30 years of business consulting, management, leadership, and I really work in a collaborative environment. And those are the qualifications that I think are needed for a successful board candidate.
Thank you. Amanda Beers.
Okay. Hi, I'm Amanda Beers. And so for my qualifications, I was a high school teacher in Tennessee very briefly before I became a stay-at-home mom. In 2013, we moved to Liberty. I have 3 kids in the Liberty schools. My oldest graduated last year, and then I have an 8th grader and a 5th grader. So in the 10 years that we've been here, I have worked with the PTA in the elementary school with lots of activities, just helping them wherever they needed help, volunteering with the teachers in the schools, and I have been the treasurer for Lillian Schumacher's PTA this past year. It's my last year doing that. Then I decided to be a substitute teacher because I wanted to be back in the classroom. I missed the students. And so I became a substitute teacher for the secondary schools in Liberty. And being in those schools just really opened my eyes to something that just seemed to happen with the students during COVID in their behaviors and in their mental health. And I just want to help them so much. And being in the classrooms with them and building relationships with the students and seeing them every day has been amazing. And I want to advocate for the students and for the teachers since I was a teacher, but being in the school system and seeing what's going on and helping the students is what I want to do this for. And the experience that I have as a teacher and as a substitute is what I feel I bring to the board.
Thank you. It's ironic that a couple of you mentioned COVID-19. That's part of the second question. What is your understanding about the educational, emotional, social effects on Liberty students as a result of COVID-19? And how do you recommend addressing those issues as a board member? And we're going to start with Kira Montuori.
Well, I can tell you what I understand about it from a parent perspective, having 4 different kids. Go through that process. It was different for each one of them. I think at the elementary level, having a very young student at that time, there were a lot of challenges as far as just keeping him engaged. And I think that in turn created challenges that he's experiencing now. I actually think I had middle schoolers, their experience was a little bit better. I feel like they had more engagement with their teachers and with their classmates, just because I think they're used to communicating through a technology device, and that was not as cumbersome or as much of a challenge for them. But I think our teachers worked so hard to make it a positive experience, but I don't know if anyone had the resources that they needed to really work through that time. But I will say that I know that there are challenges that we're still overcoming from that time. And I think it's universal. I don't think anyone really got it right. But I do think that there's still a lot more work to be done.
Thank you. Amanda Beers. The question is, what is your understanding about the educational, emotional, and social effects on the students at Liberty as a result of COVID-19? And how do you recommend addressing those issues as a board member?
I have seen issues definitely with the students from COVID. I see as I sub only in the secondary schools. So those are the classrooms that I've seen. But for me, I've seen the middle schoolers right now have been hit so hard. Their behavior in the classrooms and in the hallways is something that I've never seen before. And my 8th grader sees these behaviors as normal. My high schooler was a totally different experiences to my elementary school, my son. But these students right now are suffering so much since the pandemic. I don't know if they lost something in the learning when everything was just up in the air with the fear, but their mental health is suffering so bad. I know multiple kids who have been in mental health facilities because they have, attempted things or hurt themselves. I know so many students have problems at school and have late passing and early passing because they can't be in the hallways with other students. There's so many emotions, and so many students and teachers are struggling because as teachers, we've never seen anything like this before. And I really feel like we need more protocols for students, especially maybe students that are returning from suicide attempts. We need help for the teachers to know what to look for in depression, in suicide, and how to help these students overcome like these day-to-day issues.
Thank you. Jenn Bauer.
Okay, well, I have a little bit of hands-on experience with what COVID was like at my house with 7 middle school boys. And it was very eye-opening, like I said before. So we tried to maintain some semblance of school by showing up at 7:30, saying the pledge. Everybody had their area that they were working, kind of go over what they needed to do that day, walked around to all of them. And they were done in like 20 minutes, which it is what it is. There's only so much the teachers could do. And a lot of our teachers also had kids at home at the same time. And I really felt for them because I don't know how you teach online and do all of this stuff. And then your kids are online trying to learn, and you're trying to be a mom, and you're at home. And I think it was a really good effort. But I think, like Kira said, just kind of across the board, it just really set everyone back. And I think that's where a lot of the behavior issues come from as well. Kids need structure. They need to have an order of things. They need to know what's expected of them, when it's expected. And they really thrive in that. When it's kind of all up in the air and you can turn it in or you cannot turn it in, or you can Zoom or you cannot Zoom, then it really causes problems. So I think as a board member going forward, we really need to look at what these, especially middle schoolers, need to get back on track. And we really need to focus on our education, like math and science and reading.
Thank you. Brian Ahart.
Sure. I think I was probably one of the lucky ones. My oldest graduated in 2020, so he only experienced a small portion. My youngest, though, was a junior, and I see a big difference in between the two and the way that they reacted in those situations. I will also tell you, just based on conversations that I've had with teachers, one being my wife, and just the fact that the maturity level for those folks coming out of middle school into high school now is drastically different than they're used to from a teaching perspective. I think the high schoolers probably, like I think it was Kira said, were a little bit easier to adapt to that type of learning situation. But certainly from a middle school perspective, I think it was a significant hit. There's significant educational learning gaps. I think there are things that can be done. There's a literacy program that is taught at the elementary school, And I think we need to reevaluate those types of programs and then maybe look at implementing that in the middle school just to kind of help close that gap. And I think evident in the MSIP scores that, we're trending down. And so I think it's important that we really focus on these core subjects for the next few years to really bring them back to where they need to be.
Thank you. Angie Reed.
Okay, I'm unmuted. One of the things that I found during COVID, aside from being on the board, I was also substitute teaching during that time. And I substitute taught in K through 12 during that time. And so the district that I substitute taught in was not Liberty, because I cannot do that as a board member. And so what I saw with our elementary students was they were all there. Most districts did not split your elementary students in on separate days. So they had a lot of things going on. And then your middle and high school students, they did split the days. And what I saw with that was the kids got comfortable with having smaller groups, and the ones who were in the buildings were glad to be there, glad to see their friends, enjoyed the smaller groups, enjoyed the additional attention. And so that was helpful for them going forward. When they all came back at the secondary level, that was a struggle because they were unfamiliar with how to behave at that point in time. And so teachers have had to work really hard to reinstill the culture of their classrooms in students who were out for a year doing virtual and being in the classroom. So there is some work to be done, but I feel like we have put some supports in place for both our students and our staff in dealing with that.
Thank you. AJ Byrd.
Will you repeat the question?
Yes. What is your understanding about the educational, emotional, and social effects on Liberty students as a result of COVID-19? And how do you recommend addressing those issues?
Let me say this. I don't think we truly know the full effects of COVID-19 on our children. I think we're seeing some preliminary evidence of certain behaviors and certain experiences. I think one thing we do know about our children is socialization and education are very crucial together, that they happen together. And this socialization process, where kids are engaged with one another face to face, is a very valuable and very important. And I think we've learned to value that even more today. I've been a professional social worker for over 30 some years and have observed children and people in certain situations. And so the facts aren't in yet, but I think that out of this, I have this belief that our children are actually going to be stronger individuals. There's some painful experiences to go through here, but they're going to be of characters. We talk about the generation that fought in World War II, the Great Generation, and that went through the Depression. There was some fiber that was built in there, just like eating the right foods. And I know that it's a difficult time. Teachers have sacrificed. There's still a lot of pain and rebounding coming from this. But I'm confident that as we invest in our children, build these social networks around them, make sure there's plenty of support around them, and that they have access to quality mental health care that is available and accessible, and they have to wait a long period of time. And we have a partner in terms of this. Clay County has a funding source that has provided funds for social emotional learning. I'm confident, very confident, that we're going to see a generation here that's going to build even a greater community, a greater society, because they have built character. And one of the things
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate that. Okay, question number 3, since we have to move on. Missouri passed the Parents' Bill of Rights this year. It gives parents the right to direct the education, healthcare, and mental health of their children. What issues, if any, do you anticipate with this bill? And what specific actions might you take to increase the role of parents in Liberty schools? We're going to start with Jenn Bauer. Questions? Did Jen hear me?
Sorry, I heard you. Yes, can you
Okay.
repeat the wording of the beginning, the issues?
Yeah, Missouri just passed that Parent Bill of Rights
Mhm.
bill this year. And it gives them parents the right to direct education, healthcare, mental
Right.
health of their children. And what issues do you anticipate might result from this bill? And what actions might you take to increase, also in the second part, the role of parents in Liberty schools?
Well, increasing the role of parents in Liberty schools is one of my main priorities. I hear a lot of times that parents aren't happy, they're not pleased, they don't trust what LPS is doing, there's no transparency. And oftentimes I explain to them that everything is actually very transparent. It is very available if you take the time to go look for it or you ask the questions. Most of the time people just would rather email each other or post on social media when in fact the answer is right there and they just don't take the time to go find it and read it themselves. So as far as the Parent Bill of Rights, I think when I read the last version of the Parent Bill of Rights, it was all over the board. So I think there's all kinds of things that can create issues with that document. No matter how you feel about it, I think it will probably create a lot more work for people. I do think that I am a strong proponent of parental involvement, obviously, because I spend the last 10 years and all of my free time being involved in our kids' schools. I just don't know to what extent this will affect our day-to-day operations as a district. So that's one of the concerns that I have, but I also believe in transparency 100%. And I think that that's how you create trust with your stakeholders, is by putting everything out there and making it available for them.
Thank you. Brian Ahart.
Sure. It's an interesting conversation when you start talking about the Parents' Bill of Rights, but ultimately, and I agree with Jen, I mean, one of the things that I'm focused on as well is really bringing forth that engagement from a patron perspective. But I think there's a difference between engagement and being part of a directive and defining the direction the school district goes. Teachers and faculty and administrators are professionally trained in curriculum development. So my point is I think the bill is really a Band-Aid to really mask or prevent people from really focusing on what the issue is. And that's really the mutual respect between patrons and the district administrators. If we focus on rebuilding that trust, then we don't need the Parents' Bill of Rights. I can just as easily today go ask a teacher, what are your students learning in class? What books are you reading? It's just as simple as that. And so I think it's unnecessary, but it certainly is extremely important that parents are involved in the process of their students' education. They should not, send their kid to school and then just expect things to happen the way that they would expect them to. And plus, there's a broad spectrum of beliefs and viewpoints. And so from a school district perspective, you have to accommodate all of those.
Thank you. Amanda Beers.
Hi. Okay. When I was a teacher, it was before we had everything online, and I put my everything that I did in my curriculum, on my board or in the window of my door. But now I feel with everything being online, there's a lot of transparency. I know all of my kids' teachers are very transparent, and I can go online and I can see what my children are doing, maybe not on a specific daily or minute basis, but I can see what they're doing at any given time. I can communicate with the teachers. I feel there is transparency and communication going on, so I'm not sure that this bill is necessary either. It makes me worried that the process of the Bill of Rights of the teachers having to defend and back up every single thing they teach is going to cause the teachers to spend more time defending themselves and less time preparing meaningful lessons and executing those lessons in the classroom. It's going to become so much paperwork. And so we need to be careful with the balance of allowing the teachers to teach because they know how to teach, they're educated in how to teach, and allowing the parents to see what's going on in the classrooms to communicate with the teachers, which I think, at least here in Liberty, we are doing a really good job of. but we still need to let the teachers have the time to prepare the lessons and to teach.
Thank you. AJ Byrd. AJ, do you hear me?
Now, yes,
Yes.
can you repeat the
Okay.
question?
Yes. Missouri just passed that Parent Bill of Rights bill this year. It gives parents the right to direct their child's education, healthcare, mental health. What issues, if any, do you anticipate with this bill, and what specific actions might you take to increase the role of parents in Liberty schools?
You know, this appears to be an overburdening and an imbalance and an unneeded tool. I'm not clear on what its purpose is. Parents always have had rights and always do have rights in terms of the school. I see this as some of the barriers it presents is a heavy bureaucracy. And someone mentioned about causing the teachers to have to focus uh, on response to the parents as opposed to being focused on their quality of education. The parent is the family is the primary institution responsible for their child's education. The parents are the pinnacle of the child's learning. And because in a society we've developed a very comprehensive division of labor, uh, we have decided that a special group would be responsible and have expertise to teach our children, and that's our public educational systems. And I think that is available, and the parent needs to engage with the school in terms of their child's needs. And we depend upon these experts, but at the same time, engagement is available. And I see in the Liberty schools, parents have access. Sometimes some do not take advantage of that, but that's accountability on their part.
Thank you. Kara Montuori.
Yes, everyone has said so much good stuff already. But I will just add that I really feel like, well, one, I believe, like Jen said, that accountability and transparency are really important to building trust. I'm just not sure that this gets us there. I feel like this undermines teachers' expertise and their commitment to our kids. And the issues I see with it are just creating unrealistic expectations for our teachers who are already, doing a lot with less and dealing with things other than teaching, like the social and emotional challenges. So I just think something like this has far more consequences. I believe that it could potentially drive more people away from the profession, and really just create a system that doesn't function well because of excessive regulations. So I just think that it's not, it doesn't scream support to me for teachers who are in the trenches trying to do the work. And I just feel like as a parent, I receive so much communication from my schools and all the different teachers that I think that there are transparency is there. Resources are there. So
Thank you. Thank you. Angie Reed.
I hate to do this, but can you restate the question?
I certainly can, no problem.
Thank you.
Missouri just passed that Parents Bill of Rights bill, gives parents the right to direct the education, healthcare, and mental health of their children. What issues, if any, do you anticipate with this bill? And what specific actions on the second part might you take to increase the role of parents in Liberty schools?
I've looked through that bill because anytime that you have a Parents Bill of Rights, as a teacher for 28 years, my parents were my biggest advocate. They were my biggest support. They were the ones who knew their children. They were important to what was happening to their child's education. And so to include them and to involve them was always at the top of my list of things to do when I started any school year. Who are my parents? What do how involved are they in their students? And then when I look through that, there are so many of the things in that law that are already being done. There are things that if you look in board policy, we already have policies concerning those things. So I think AJ said it, it's an overburdening of the system to add more information. And then to add on top of that, what it does to teachers as far as, am I doing my job? What have I missed? What aren't I doing? And I feel like that is one less thing teachers need to be concerned about while they are working on teaching our children and trying to get that as well as everything else on their plate dealt with.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Please explain how you will be voting on the upcoming question 1. That's the bond money for constructing and improving school district facilities. And question 2, a tax levy whose income is meant to increase teacher salaries to attract and retain staff. And we're going to start with AJ Byrd.
Okay, repeat the question one more time.
Yeah. Explain how you'll be voting on that upcoming question 1. It's bond money for constructing and improving school district facilities. And question 2, a tax levy whose income is meant to increase teacher salaries to attract and retain staff.
Okay. Yes, I'm going to be supporting that bond issue. I supported the vote of the board to support that bond issue, both of them. One is we had a bond issue that was passed in 2018 as I was a member of the board, and I've seen the outcomes of those and the quality of the facilities that we have that we continue to need to improve and retrofit sometimes. An example is backing up to 2018, there's a section of Liberty High School called the 800s. And it was an area for students, typical classrooms for the most part. And this now houses the EDGE program, a micro school program that allows students to learn in a different way. It's opening an opportunity up for students to study in such a way where the math, the science, the English, the social studies are brought in together around topics, around issues that face us as a nation, as a world. And so for some students, that's exactly what they want and need. So I've seen what a physical change can do. And some of the things that we have on the agenda for upcoming year, we'll do some of the same things in terms of improving the quality of our schools. And it's a message sent to our students when we have excellent facilities. It says, I'm investing in you. I believe in you. It's a motivational tool. Part 2 was, would you help me?
Part 2 was increase teacher salaries. To
increase teacher salaries. If I can just briefly finish the sentence.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
You be for it or against it? How about that?
I'm for it, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Next goes to Jenn Bauer.
I'm a giant advocate of the bond issue. It's been a little bit controversial in some circles, and I support it 100%. I have explained this to different stakeholders who may have a differing opinion than I do, that this is basically how I think of this as taking care of our house. So we have all these buildings, we have structures, we have light repairs, we have roof repairs, we have floor repairs, we have safety things. Everyone wants safety. And so this affords us some finances to take care of some entry issues and security issues. And it also takes care of keeping us competitive in some of our theater and our athletics as well from our surrounding districts. Like Staley has very high-end facilities. And I think it's a good use of the money. I know that after sitting at these board meetings for the last year and listening to all of the input and all of the explanations from the consultants and all the auditing and all of the bidding, that a lot of work has gone into it. And I trust that LPS has put together a great plan. And as far as the second part of that, the debt service levy being transferred to operating costs, I think that's fantastic. That gives us money for paras, for support staff, for teachers, where we're really lacking.
Thank you. Angie Reed.
Okay, so yes, I absolutely support the bond issue. The board has been working on this bond package for the past 2 years to look at projects that need to be completed. We have buildings that need additional structures. We need classrooms. Obviously, there are housekeeping things, bathrooms, lights, windows, that sort of thing. All of those, all of that, by doing it with the bond, allows us to devote money to other things that may not be able to be completed, because when you are doing repairs and work orders, they're never done. As far as the levy, moving that 50 cents and into the debt service fund is a fabulous thing that we are able to do, so that we can get a recurring amount of money, so that we can go forward with increasing pay for all of our staff. And that is one of the trickiest things about recruiting and retaining staff, is you are dealing with what other districts, you're in competition with what other districts are paying. So by being able to do this, we can continue to do this. It's not a one-time only increase to pay. It is a continual stream of funding.
Thank you. Kara Montuori.
Yes, I will be supporting or voting yes on the bond issue as well. I believe that this is an investment not only in the infrastructure and learning enhancements to our buildings, but it is an investment in our students. And I agree with what AJ said. I think it just says to them that we are providing you an excellent space, and therefore we are expecting you to be excellent as well. I think having a strong district, just, buildings that are that look good and that operate well also enhances pride for the students and teachers. And so that's my perspective on the bond issue. And then the levy issue is also a yes for me. I think the most effective way to have a strong school district is to hire and retain quality staff and teachers. I think right now I have a heart for the paraprofessionals too. And I think what we are paying them to work with some of our most vulnerable children is really unfortunate. And so I really feel like, and I would be a proponent of using those funds to help keep the people that are committed to our students.
Thank you. Amanda Beers.
I'm not sure what I could add that everybody else hasn't already said, but I do support both of them. The bond issue, like everybody has said, I think the money will be great to bring our buildings, up to date and help them be competitive, and to show the kids that we are on their side. And being in the schools, I've seen some things that need some work, but I definitely support it. And for the transfer of the funds, I think is excellent. I think we need to be competitive with other districts. We want teachers to be in the classrooms that will be the best for the students. And I agree with Kira that paras do absolutely need to be paid more. They do so much work for these kids. And with those funds, we can hopefully provide better pay for the teachers and for the retention of those teachers.
Thank you. Brian Ahart.
Yeah, so being last on this question is a little bit difficult. All the good answers are taken, but no, I'm personally supporting both the bond and the levy. So question 1 and 2. I think on the bond side, I think there's definitely some great projects, especially ones that are related to safety and the environment that our students live in today. That's probably the number one thing that we need to focus on, is ensuring that they have a safe learning environment. The project at Franklin Elementary will be fantastic, redoing that whole front facade and entrance, and providing them a little bit more of a security level there. And obviously maintaining our buildings and doing all the things that we need to actually will help reduce costs in the long run. So I think most of these projects are really will help us not just from the maintenance perspective, but also help reduce the expenses. On the levy side, I talked to several principals, and they all indicated that retention and attracting top talent was extremely important. And the only way that we're really going to be able to do that is to increase the pay. And I agree. I think at every level, everybody involved in the educational process deserves to be paid more. And so I think, the debt transfer will be a great way to maintain that.
Thank you. Okay, next question. I may even combine a couple on this one. What should be included in education changes for civic education and patriotism if needed? This is an issue that's been brought up in legislature. And that would relate to decisions on books, teaching materials, things like that. Do you have thoughts on these, what should be included, education changes for civic education and patriotism? And we will start with Amanda Beers.
I had a feeling you would start with me. I'm not sure I have a good answer for that. I don't know a whole lot about it. So I'm not really sure what to say. Do you want to say the question again?
Oh, just, your thoughts. There has been discussion about what should be, there should be changes in civics education, and patriotism should be stressed. And it has to do with books, teaching materials, and things like that.
I mean, I don't know that, I'm not sure that we need many. Well, we do need changes, I think, in our history books and social study books. And I think, we should, I guess, be patriotic, not take it to the extreme, or, take it into race relations. I'm not sure what else to say on that.
Okay, that's just fine. Kira Montuori. Any thoughts on that?
I too am just a little confused on the question. I do believe in teaching our history. I believe that, our teachers are the content experts. So I have a lot of faith in our teachers, and I think that there should be collaboration across and teaming across grade levels, so that there is that collaboration in teacher groups or subject and with regards to subjects. But I too, I'm not really clear on what the actual question is, or maybe I'm just not absorbing it all that well, but I do believe in teaching our history.
Okay, I think that maybe to clarify it a little bit, sometimes certain parts of history are stressed more than others. There's been concern about things that aren't stressed, or that should be stressed more, or stressed too much, in terms of maybe are not illustrious part of our past.
Okay, well, in that sense, then I'm not for eliminating parts of our history and trying to shy away from them. I will say I thought it was, the fact that I just learned about the Tulsa massacre, 3 years ago, I feel like that was really alarming to me, that I had no idea what that was up until a few years ago. So yes, I think it's important that we see our entire history and learn about, everything that has happened. But yeah, I have faith in our teachers to teach our history. So yeah, I'm not for shying away from our history as it is.
Thank you. Brian Ahart.
Yeah, no, we need to teach the good, the bad, the ugly. I think the biggest concern that people have as it relates to this kind of topic is, I don't want to make one group feel guilty for something in the past. And while I agree with that, I don't think that happens in the Liberty School District when our teachers are teaching. I think they're focused on the facts of what happened, and focus, and again, there is some bad history. unfortunately, but as long as we're all aware of that, I just think that we can't gloss over. I think the thing is, ultimately, we can't shy away from it, but we also need to ensure that we're not putting guilt on other people. And like I said, I don't think we are. I don't think we should remove books that talk about certain aspects of history. Some folks want to read those. That's fantastic. Others don't. Then they can choose not to read those types of materials. But I think ultimately our teachers are doing a fantastic job of conveying the facts and the content. And I don't think there's anything else we should really do at this point.
Thank you. Angie Reed.
In regards, I guess my question is, what exactly do they mean by civics? Because to me, civics is something I think about in how you behave, how you participate in your community, how you participate in your government. And those things are taught from kindergarten through high school. You talk to kindergarten students about who's in your community. You talk about sixth grade students with what you can do. You talk to high school students about other things that are more in tune with their level of education and their age. And so I really haven't heard much about this other than what we shouldn't teach in social studies classes. And as Brian alluded to, some subjects are difficult, but they are part of our history. And yet at the same time, how they're taught is going to make, to me, the difference in how that's received. I think that is also something that our curriculum committees work really hard on, making sure that what materials are being used and presented at all grade levels is appropriate for that age group and that grade level, so that you're not giving them information that's above their ability to understand. And so I think we do that. But again, I'm not sure exactly what the definition of civics is they're talking about.
Understand. Thank you. AJ Byrd.
This somewhat smells, from my observation, this ideal about patriotism. I've seen reading in the history books, and I once wanted to be a history major, that people that were labeled, their whole lives were labeled as a result of how they identify them, labeled as communist or whatever, and drove them out of the public access. Civics is taught in a different way in today's world. There's a book written by an assistant Secretary of State. It's called Soft Power, and it talks about how the United States won the Cold War based upon not about directing people and controlling them, but about the quality of life. Genes are worn all over the world because of this nation, basically. I could use a lot of other subjects, but as a result of soft power, the kind of films that are shown, the kind of activities that are promoted. And so that Cold War, I don't want to describe what we're in right now, but was won due to soft power, not to force and hard power. I'm convinced that we're still teaching civics in a different way in our classes, and somebody's involved in overreach, and it seems too political for me. And the League of Women Voters, you should speak to this because you know a lot about politics and citizenship.
Okay, thank you. Jenn Bauer.
Okay, well, I think of civics as citizenship. And then that also then goes into patriotism. And I guess when I think of those things in a school setting, I think of going to a Friday night football game and how everybody is excited and they're cheering for their team. And maybe it's Liberty versus Liberty North, and your side is cheering for Liberty and my side's cheering for Liberty North. And we all have fun and we cheer and we have something in common in that we enjoy that. We come from the same community. We can have different people we're rooting for and different things we're cheering about, but we all have this common thread that we are Liberty. And so I guess in some ways I think of citizenship and civics and that kind of perspective. I'm a visual person, so I just think of all of us being together. We can all leave and go to our cars, and it was a good game, and you know people from that side, and you all talk, and I feel like that is civility. And I have a plug, kind of. When I was at the Thrive Institute this summer with the kids, the American Public Square did a seminar on civility, facts, and perspective. And I thought it was fabulous. And I've asked the district if that's a class that can be taught to our middle and high schoolers. I think it's super important that they have some idea what that actually means. So yes, for history, yes, for civility, yes, for citizenship and patriotism.
Thank you. Next question. Going to another Missouri House bill here. It was just passed that now goes to the Missouri Senate. It passed in the House that allows a public school district student to transfer to a non-resident school district. What are your thoughts about this and how it might affect Liberty School District? And I will start with Brian Ahart.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic, and I'm sure it garners a lot of perspectives on both sides of that. I think for me, I don't support it from a standpoint. I think there's a lot more things that it can do to harm a community than it does to improve it. You know, it's going to pit school districts against one another to attract the top students from each of those districts. So we've got 3 great school districts in the Northland, and we have several other school districts that's kind of surround those. And I think we're going to be begging from, you know, students are going to be moving to, you know, maybe to Park Hill or to North Kansas City, but yet we're going to be attracting folks from maybe some of the smaller schools. And I just think you lose that sense of community when you do that. And I think that's so important, especially from from childhood and going through high school, having that sense of community, knowing those people that you go to school with year in, year out, I think is extremely important. And I just don't see the benefit of allowing students to be able to transfer school district. I think the other thing that it does is it makes funding much more difficult when you're trying to figure out how many students you're going to have from a district perspective. I think there are just way more cons to that topic than there are positives.
Thank you. Angie Reed, what do you think?
When the board had its last public meeting in February, sorry. We voted on a resolution to oppose the open enrollment, and much of what Brian already said are the reasons for it. It impacts your finances, it impacts your ability to plan, and the oversight is very limited from the districts that are receiving and sending. I think that's right. Yeah. And so that was one of the reasons that we voted in to not support that open resolution bill, because of the unknowns and how it will impact the education system of the receiving district for that. So,
yeah. Okay, thank you. AJ Byrd.
This open enrollment bill, basically, it is a budget nightmare. Over 175 Missouri districts have passed resolutions not supporting it. The legislation could potentially hurt students with disabilities, especially rural districts. Rural districts could lose even greater amounts of population and result in long-term and premature consolidation of those districts. And a loss, as Mr. Ahart said, a loss of a sense of community. Open enrollment is potentially pitting unnecessary competition among districts. We have spent a lot of time in our history of establishing local districts and maintaining some boundaries, and suddenly a switch the ideal to some kind of open enrollment suggest there's here again an attempt to take away local control. And what the outcomes for that, it just didn't clear to me is what's purpose is this, except satisfying some political aim.
Okay, thank you. Amanda Beers.
Oh, I guess I was unmuted this whole time. I have mixed feelings about this. When my oldest was in kindergarten, we lived in Memphis. There was a kind of an open enrollment plan. I was not real comfortable with the elementary school that we were zoned for in the county, because we weren't in Memphis city limits, and we actually transferred her through their open enrollment into a city school. Their open enrollment was very different. There were very, very few spots, and there were a lot of hoops that I had to jump through. It was a lot of work to get her into one of those very, very, very few spots. I appreciated as a parent that I had that opportunity to get that spot. I was very lucky, but there was a lot of work to do to get that. And just there were only a couple spots, in each of the schools. So I appreciate that as a parent that I was able to move her. However, it seems like the open enrollment is more than just a few spots. When you have that many students that are moving in and out of schools, it does create a budget nightmare. It's hard to prepare for any special needs that need to, paras that need to be in the schools, to prepare like how many teachers you need. And it does cause that competition that could, take funds away from some schools that need it. And so I don't appreciate that if that, so I did take advantage of it, but I think the way that it is here with it so open creates lots of unnecessary problems.
Thank you. Jenn Bauer.
Okay, so this is one that I've actually done a little bit of studying on, because I didn't really, like AJ said, I didn't really understand the purpose. And I think what I've learned is that the purpose is to hold the district accountable. Like Brian was talking about our MSIP 6 and MSIP 6. Some of our scores are really dropping. Math in particular has dropped quite a bit. And so I think maybe the intention, and I'm just speculating, is to create accountability within the district. And I think when we moved here in 2004, if a school wasn't accredited, like one or two of our schools at that time were not accredited, that you could actually apply to move to a different elementary school within our district, because we had friends that did that, because that school wasn't accredited. Is now everything is, but anyway, that was kind of an option for accountability. Now, I also can tell you that only up to 3% can transfer out of a district. So of our 13,000 or 12,000 something, that's 360 students could transfer out of our district into another district, and our funding would not go with them. So then what if it's Independence and they want to transfer 3% out to Liberty? They would come here, we would not get their money. So I guess some of these things are just informational purposes. We are opposed to it. I was at the board meeting that the district said no, and you can opt in as a district. And like AJ said, most have opted out. The most important thing is there's no data to support that if this improves student achievement. So okay. I don't know if where you were in Memphis, if there was information on that, but we don't have any information on that. So
okay, thank you. And last, Kara Montuori.
Yes. Well, I'm concerned a little bit with the logistic and financial challenges that it could create from kids transferring in and getting even more kids into classes. I do understand, from the perspective of students with special needs. I know that there have been cases where families didn't feel like they were getting or their child was getting the resources and attention that they need. So I can understand it from a parent perspective, wanting to meet the needs of their specific child. But I think instead we need to look at what what would be the reason for families to move out of our district, and then try and address that situation. Dedicating resources to strengthening those programs. I do believe that open enrollment could create that competitive, whether it's the arts program or a sports program, getting kids transferring for those reasons. And so I just think that it could overall weaken our school systems, across our public school systems across the board. And I'm not in favor of that. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, next question, may be our last, it may not. We'll see how fast we go. What district support is currently given for the health and safety of LGBTQ students, and do you recommend any changes? So we're going to start that with Angie Reed.
At this point, we have had multiple discussions about that during several meetings, and the general feeling is not a great word, but I think that we are supportive, and we try and work with parents and with families who have children that fall into one of those or many of those categories in a way to support them. Also, working with our staff, be it teachers or secretaries or nurses or custodians, so that they are aware of the issues and some of the concerns that become apparent when you have students who differ from everybody else. And so should our children be treated differently because they are different? I'm a special education teacher, and I am a proponent of you meet kids where they are, you work with them, you support them, you treat them the way they should be treated as a human being. And what letter of the alphabet corresponds with them should not be part of the equation. And so I feel like we've done in the district things to be supportive of students and families, as well as provide information to our staff to also help be supportive of that.
Thank you. AJ Byrd.
Could you
AJ.
repeat the
Yeah,
question?
I'll be glad to. What district support is currently given for the health and safety of LGBTQ students, and do you recommend any changes?
I think that the district is given support, and I think we have policies in place that have been supportive and helpful in terms of addressing students. Is there more we could do? Yes, I would say likely so. But I think we have a situation where I've learned our teachers or administrative staff have known more about what's going on with a student's life in terms of their lifestyle. And oftentimes the parents don't know, and teachers and staff have had to broach that circumstance and assist the child, the student. And so I think we have a group of teachers who have, through professional education, have broached this with students and have engaged them. And again, I say we can do more. I think an example is the kind of library that we have where students have access to information and stories about people who they can relate to. And so we have stood in the gap and said, we're supporting you. That message has been established clearly, but there's still yet work to do. And I'm very open to what we might do to make it better.
Thank you. Kira Montoya.
Hi, I believe that we do have some staff and some teachers who are really demonstrating some compassion for this vulnerable population. I think school should be a safe place for everyone, and every student deserves to be honored and respected. As far as what the district is doing currently, I'm not fully aware of the policies around this, in particular to this population. But I think any way that we can protect and support all of our students, whether they're from this population or our special needs kids, I think it's important that our schools are a place that every child feels like they belong. And I know that that is a priority of the Liberty Public Schools. So I know that that's important for them. So I would be a champion for those efforts to continue.
Thank you. Jenn Bauer.
Well, this is the question of the year, isn't it? This is the one that I've answered the most or been asked the most anyway. I feel like it's actually extremely simple to me, and I've asked for some people to spend some time educating me or giving me their perspective, but it really still, no matter what, just boils down to the fact that all kids need to be taken care of. So I don't feel like you need to have specific policies for this group of kids and specific policies for this group of kids. You just have a culture in the building that there is no bullying, and it applies to every kid in the whole building. And I don't think we need to categorize kids and students into different squares and say, you know, you're in this square and you're in that square and you get these policies and procedures and you get these. I feel like it really just needs to be across the board, and that's the culture of the whole building, and everyone is supported and everyone is taken care of and everyone feels a sense of belonging. And I think it's also a little bit delicate to get into who's the most vulnerable students in our school, because after being in the schools, I've actually learned there's a lot of very vulnerable kids in our school. So there's a lot of kids that need taken care of. And I guess I just feel like it's our job to take care of all of them and whatever they need. Like Angie said, meet them where they are and take care of them. But as far as specific policies, I think we need trained staff that can handle an array of situations with our kids.
Thank you. Brian Ahart.
No, I really echo what Jenn said. We have to take care of everybody. Public education is meant for all students, and no matter what background, belief system they have, we are there to provide a quality education, which means that they need to feel safe and feel like they can have the conversations that they need to in order to really be feel mentally safe as well, or emotionally safe. So I think the district does a great job for the most part. Obviously, can we do more? Sure. I think one of the things that I would like to do if elected to the board is really sit down with a cross section of students and just have a conversation with them about these types of topics to find out what more, where do they think that the district is doing well, and maybe what are some areas and opportunities that we might look at from a board perspective and a district leadership team and things that we can do there. But ultimately, our goal is to provide a safe and valuable education to everyone.
Thank you. Amanda Beers.
Okay. As a parent of an LGBTQ student, I feel like I have a lot to say about this. My oldest that graduated high school last year is non-binary, and I was very happy with the support that they were able to get at school, and it didn't seem like there was much bullying, and they seemed very happy with how they were treated. Being in the schools in a sub, and my 8th grader has quite a few LGBTQ friends. I am still very happy with how the district has been handling it. I know a couple kids who have, as they've transitioned, have changed their names, and the policy for that, I appreciate that the parents do have to turn in paperwork, and how quickly the school changed the names on the rolls. I think that's very positive. I appreciate seeing teachers who have signs up that says, that they're a friendly classroom to everybody. I think it's very important for students to feel safe. I think we're doing a good job for the most part for LGBTQ students. Like I did say before, I think we could have some more, policies in place for the mental health aspect of it. But I feel like the district is very positive, that the teachers have been very supportive, that my child in particular had a very positive experience in high school being LGBTQ. And I really like the kids in the schools, and I like how the schools have been supporting them.
Okay. Well, we're at the point here where we're doing closing statements. It's time for the 2 minutes of closing remarks. Take a moment to gather your thoughts. I want to personally thank all of you for joining us. Learning about your next school board representatives has been very helpful, even though I'm not in your district. It's been quite an education. So I'll give you 2 minutes for each one, and we're going to start with Kira Montuori. Here we go. Yes.
Okay, I went. Okay. Well, I will say that in a role of service, I think the most important thing you can do is listen. I think that listening helps you to hear all perspectives and leads to sound decision making. I bring a love of kids. I have 16 years experience advocating for kids and trying to bring what I can to help them reach their potential. And so I bring that passion and a great appreciation for teachers to a potential board role. Do I think I am the best person to serve on a board? I think would be presumptuous to say, but I know that my love and passion for kids, how I feel about education is unmatched. I will say that the experience that my husband and I have had mentoring a child in the foster care system and mentoring at-risk youth in our community made me very aware of why it's important to have a strong education. It helped me to see education through a different lens. And through that experience, it has made me realize that education is really the springboard for a child reaching their potential, regardless of the background in which they come from. And so I bring a commitment to kids and to our schools, and hope that if that is something that you value, that you will vote for me on April 4th.
Thank you very much. I wonder if you were able to see the timing, the 2 minute timer?
Yes, I was.
Okay, good, because I couldn't see it and I wanted to make sure you could. Next one is Amanda Beers.
I'm going to try to cram lots in this 2 minutes, so I might be talking really, really fast. I just wanted to address a couple more issues that I personally feel very strong about. Nobody's really, I think one person brought up book banning very briefly, but I just want to say that I don't support taking books out of the library. I am very passionate about that. I'm a very passionate reader. And as a parent of an LGBTQ youth, I feel that the books in our libraries should be reflective of our students. We don't only just have, white, Christian, straight families in our district, and all of the students should be able to see themselves, find themselves in the literature in our schools. I also am a proponent of diversified education, making sure that all the students have everything that they need in the classrooms, making sure that, IEPs and 504s, everything that the students need, that the district, the teachers, the educators can provide. As a law, we should be providing a free and appropriate education. And I very much advocate for that appropriate education and each student having what they need. Other than that, I love being in this school district. I love these kids. Some of these kids I have seen, in the last 10 years growing up in the different, in my kids' schools, and as a sub getting to know these kids. And that's what makes me want to do this, is I love these kids. My heart hurts for the ones that are hurting, and I want them to be the best that they can be. And that is my whole reason for doing this, is love for these kids, to advocate for the children and to be there and support and communicate with the teachers. That's what I'm coming here for. And it's just this relationship that I have with the kids. I love them and I want to support them. And that's what I feel like I'm bringing to this board if elected, that I love your kids. You know, if you're watching this and you have kids in secondary schools, they might know who I am. I love your kids and I want to help them be the best people that they can be.
Thank you. Jenn Bauer.
Okay, well, I have a confession to make that I actually am a private school student. So I started private schools in kindergarten and graduated college from a private school. So when we moved to Liberty in 2004, our daughter was born and our parents said, oh, well, we'll pay for them to go, your kids to go to private school. And I said, no, we moved to Liberty because they have excellent schools. We're going to give this a shot. And I wanted so badly for them to be wrong and me to be right. And I was. And it wasn't very long after that that my dad became a watchdog and volunteered to talk to the kids. And so I feel like I've kind of made a transition in not knowing anything about public schools until our daughter was in kindergarten to absolutely loving it and supporting it and giving all of my time and a lot of money and energy to our district. And so I not only love Liberty, my husband grew up here, he's a graduate of Liberty, we have lots of family and friends, but I love our district and I'm really proud to have made the decision that we made to send our kids to public schools here. And I know that it creates an opportunity. I mean, our students probably do not have a lot of needs. There are a lot of kids that I have learned over the years through being in the district and being in the schools and having kids at our house all the time. There's a lot of kids that don't have what our kids have. And it's very eye-opening because in Liberty, I think there's like a perception that everyone has everything they need. And that's not true. So as a community, I think it's super important to keep our schools very strong, our teachers happy. They raise their kids here. They send their kids to school here too. I think that's very important. The district quality of the education and the excellence creates jobs. It creates people moving here. It increases property values. It does a lot for our entire community.
Time, please.
Thank you. Brian Ahart.
Yeah, first of all, thanks to the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum. It's been a great opportunity, honestly, to get to know the other candidates as well. We really haven't communicated a whole lot. So thank you for doing this, as well as, Jen, I kind of agree with you in terms of, you know, when we moved to Liberty in 2003, we moved from another Northland district, but the whole reason we chose Liberty, one, was because of the school system, which then actually attracted my wife to the Liberty School District from an employment perspective. So both of my kids have attended Liberty schools. One graduated, one went to Minneapolis to do gymnastics and finish his school there. But, you know, from that perspective, the school district does a phenomenal job. We've got a great foundation, and really from a school board perspective, our job is just to continue building upon that. One of the things that I feel very strongly, as a school board member, you're one of 7 individuals. We all have opinions, but I think first and foremost, my opinion really does not matter. What matters are the data and the facts behind what we're making a decision about. I may feel very strongly about something, but once we do research and study and understand the topic, you know, it really comes down to where does the data lie and what are the facts telling you? And so I think those things are very important from a school board member, is objectivity. I have no other agenda. Both of my kids are out of the district. I feel like it's my time to serve and contribute in a different way than my wife does. And so from that perspective, I would love to have your support and your vote on April 4th.
Thank you. Angie Reed. Mute, can't hear. Thank you. Unmute. There you go.
Here we go. Okay. So my husband and I chose to move here, and when we moved from Central Missouri to Liberty in '94 because of the school system. Being an educator, that was at the top of my list. I had a daughter in 3rd grade and a 2-year-old. And so it was important for us to be close to our jobs, but also in a district that would provide our daughters with the best education possible. Both of them have graduated and are successful adults. They keep in touch with their friends. They keep in touch with their teachers. And I feel that speaks volumes about our teachers when their students keep in touch with them because of the impact that they had. Because I was teaching, my volunteer time in Liberty Public Schools was a little limited, but as often as possible, I was in their classrooms trying to be of assistance or taking them to programs or supporting them in whatever endeavor that they had. And so I don't have an agenda specific, but I think it's important that we continue to ensure the opportunities for our students for their future successes. And then the other big issue is being able to listen and hear and consider. Much of what Brian said is very true, because it's important. There are 7 members on a board, and the information that we get is important for us to pay attention to think about, to communicate with each other about, so that when we come to a decision, whether or not we all agree with each other, we agree that it is what is best for our students and our staff and LPS. So I would love to have your vote on April the 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. AJ Byrd.
Yes, I think what I've heard here, am I muted?
No,
Okay.
we can hear you.
I think what I've heard here from the candidates here is indicated that this current board has done a good job, and so are supportive. So I think that speaks volumes, and I think that we have been. I don't want to use this word, but it's the only one I can come up with right at the moment. We've been battle tested with going through the COVID years, and have stood strong and made some good decisions that have helped our students. I would say this, that one of the things that I would like to address further is our teacher salaries. Our tenured teachers, a little more long-term teachers, are financially supported much better in terms of financial support compared to entry level. We are not as competitive as we could be at the entry level, and so that would be an area where I would really want to pursue, because it's very important to get those high quality teachers entry level, as well as retaining our teachers. So I've got a strategy to work on that. The second thing I would like to note, there's been some conversation about MSIP 6 and 5. And the reality is, I'll just read directly from the report. It says the 2022 performance scores alone cannot result in decline in classification due to changing criteria. In other words, the criteria for MSIP 6 is different than MSIP 5. And so it does reflect a different score, but it's about a different set of criteria. And so I think more work needs to be, more absorption, more study would be positive. But in reality, this is 1 year that cannot be measured. There was no testing in that area, APRs, done in 2019 and 20. And then 2021 was a year of return. So it's difficult to measure those against previous years. So there's no clear determination that there's been failure.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening to share your views on these important topics. And we're going to go to Forum Chair Anitra.
Thank you, candidates. It was very informative. And thank you, audience, for your thought-provoking questions and your interest in the April 4th Liberty School Board elections. A recording of this forum will be available on the League's website, LWVKC.org. you can have your mother-in-laws watch how well you did. Please take a moment to share our candidate forums via your Facebook page, Nextdoor, and other social media channels. And remember, for complete voting information, candidate information, visit lwvkc.org and vote411.org. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, League of Women Voters. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
You look rather scary, Dave.
So the recording is stopped, right?
I don't see myself. Pardon me.